I thought I was losing my mind, not in a dramatic way. In a quiet, terrifying, nobody can see this way. I was waking up at 3 a.m. with my heart hammering. I was crying in the car for no reason I could name. I was snapping at people I loved and then spending the rest of the day hating myself for it. I was forgetting words mid-sentence. Forgetting what I walked into a room for. I was exhausted in a way that sleep did not fix, and my doctor said, "Anxiety, here is a prescription." If that story sounds familiar, I need you to stay with me, because what happened to me and what is happening to millions of women right now is not a mental health failure. It is a medical system failure, and this week that finally got acknowledged at the highest level. Drop a comment right now and tell me, did a doctor ever call your perimenopause symptoms anxiety? I genuinely want to know how many of you are sitting there nodding, because the numbers are about to blow your mind. In March 2026, the Royal College of Psychiatrists published their very first position statement on menopause and mental health. Let that land, the first ever in the entire history of that institution, and what they found was exactly what so many of us already knew from living it. Women are not being told that menopause can trigger brand new mental health symptoms. A YouGov survey carried out for the college found that only around 1 in 4 women even knew that menopause could cause a new mental health condition. 1 in 4, which means 3 out of 4 of us walked into our doctor's offices with no framework whatsoever for understanding what was happening in our own bodies. And without that framework, doctors filled in the blank. They called it anxiety, they called it depression, they handed over a prescription for antidepressants, and for a lot of women, that was the end of the conversation. Here is the thing that makes me so angry about this. A major study published in 2025 followed 42 women who experienced serious mental health crises, including suicidal thoughts, during perimenopause. Out of those 42 women, only 7 had any previous history of depression. Only 6 had any previous history of anxiety. These were not women with pre-existing mental health conditions spiraling. These were women experiencing something entirely new, something that had a name and a cause and a treatment, and they were not being told what it was. Instead, 29 of them faced resistance from their doctors when they tried to get help, 14 experienced significant delays in getting any treatment at all, and when the researchers looked at what actually worked, 32 of those women said hormone replacement therapy made them feel better. Antidepressants helped only 5. That is not a small gap, that is a chasm. So let us talk about why this keeps happening, because it is not as simple as bad doctors. It is about a system that was never designed with perimenopausal women in mind. Perimenopause can start in your late 30s or early 40s, sometimes even earlier, and it can last anywhere from a few years to over a decade. During this time, your estrogen and progesterone are not just declining, they are swinging wildly and unpredictably, and those two hormones are not just reproductive hormones, they are brain hormones. Progesterone in particular has a natural calming effect because it supports GABA activity in the brain. GABA is essentially your nervous system's brake pedal. When progesterone drops, that brake pedal stops working properly. You feel more reactive, more wired, more on edge, not because something is wrong with your thoughts, because something is happening in your biology. Estrogen, meanwhile, is doing extraordinary things for your brain. It keeps neurons firing, supports the formation of new brain cells, helps regulate serotonin and dopamine, and literally fuels your brain's energy supply. When estrogen starts fluctuating, research shows there is an overall reduction in brain energy levels. Your brain is not working with the same resources it had before, and that shows up as mood changes, anxiety, brain fog, memory gaps, and a feeling that is almost impossible to explain to someone who has not experienced it. The feeling that you are not quite yourself anymore. Here is what is so important to understand. These symptoms are indistinguishable from anxiety and depression on paper: low mood, panic attacks, irritability, emotional numbness, loss of confidence, sleep problems. All of these appear on the checklist for generalized anxiety disorder. All of these also appear on the list of perimenopause symptoms, without a hormonal assessment, without someone in that room thinking to ask about your cycle, your age, your sleep, your night sweats. There is no obvious reason to look beyond a mental health diagnosis. Pause here and tell me in the comments, what symptom did you have that nobody connected to your hormones? I am asking because I think the list is longer than most people realize. Because it is not just anxiety and mood, it is rage, a kind of rage that feels disproportionate and alarming and completely unlike you. It is brain fog so thick you start worrying about dementia. Research from the study of women's health across the nation found that nearly 60% of perimenopausal women report significant memory complaints. A 2026 international study of over 17,000 women across 158 countries found massive gaps between the symptoms women recognized as perimenopausal and the symptoms they were actually experiencing. Women did not have the information to connect what was happening to them with what their hormones were doing. And so they went to doctors and said, "I feel anxious, I feel low, I feel like I am falling apart." And doctors, working within a system that has historically underfunded and under-researched women's health, reached for the most familiar tool available, the antidepressant prescription. Now, I want to be clear about something. Antidepressants are not villainous. For some women, they are genuinely necessary and genuinely helpful, sometimes alongside hormonal treatment. This is not a conversation about demonizing medication. It is a conversation about incomplete assessment because prescribing antidepressants without first asking whether perimenopause is in the picture means you are treating a branch while the root is still untouched, and that is how women end up spending years on medication that provides partial relief at best, while the actual cause of their suffering goes unaddressed. There is also something particularly cruel about the way this plays out. Women in perimenopause are already questioning themselves. They are already wondering if they are overreacting, if they are too sensitive, if this is just stress or just aging or just who they are now, when a doctor confirms the anxiety diagnosis without exploring further, it can feel like validation of the worst thing you feared, that you are simply not coping, that something is fundamentally broken in you. You are not broken. Your hormones are fluctuating. Those are two very different things. A 2026 study out of Liverpool John Moores University and the Newson Clinic found that around 1 in 6 women are experiencing suicidal thoughts during perimenopause and menopause that are not being identified or treated effectively. The lead researcher on that study said that too many women are being assessed with tools that do not capture the hormonal drivers of what they are experiencing, tools designed without this population in mind. Gaps that are, in her words, both avoidable and dangerous, avoidable and dangerous. So what do you actually do with this information? Because I know some of you are sitting here and this is clicking into place in a way that feels both relieving and infuriating at the same time. Here is what I want you to take from this. First, you are allowed to go back. You are allowed to go back to your doctor or find a new one and say, "I want a full assessment that includes perimenopause. I want us to look at my hormones, my cycle history, my symptoms as a whole picture." You do not have to accept a diagnosis that does not fit. Second, you are allowed to ask specifically about hormone therapy. HERT is not the right path for every woman, but it should be on the table for discussion. It should not be something you have to fight to even bring up. Third, you are not imagining it. The brain fog is real. The rage is real. The anxiety that arrived out of nowhere in your 40s with no life event to explain it is real. Research published in early 2026 confirmed that a landmark study led by Monash University found that hallmark hormonal symptoms can emerge well before cycles become irregular. You can be perimenopausal with a regular period. You can be perimenopausal in your late 30s. The old framework of waiting for chaos in your cycle before taking symptoms seriously is outdated, and the scientific community is now saying so loudly. You walked into that doctor's office telling the truth about what you were experiencing. The system was not equipped to hear it properly. That is not your fault. It never was. The Royal College of Psychiatrists finally putting this in writing is a step. It is a real, meaningful step, but a position statement does not help you in the appointment you have next Tuesday. You do. Your voice does. Your refusal to accept an explanation that does not fully account for what you are living through does. You are not anxious. You are not falling apart. You are in a hormonal transition that the medical world is only just starting to take seriously, and you deserve care that reflects that. If this video cracked something open for you, please share it with every woman in your life who is in her 40s and struggling and does not know why. She needs to see this. The woman who thinks she is just not coping anymore needs to see this. Send it to her directly. And tell me in the comments, were you misdiagnosed with anxiety before finding out it was perimenopause? Tell me your story, tell me how long it took, tell me what finally changed. I read every single one. If you are not subscribed yet, do it now, because next week we are going into exactly what to say to your doctor to get a proper perimenopause assessment, including the specific questions that will get you taken seriously. You do not want to miss that one. Word count, approximately 1850 words.